Thank you, Nupur. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good afternoon. So now we are going to start this webinar on anticipatory action for monsoon preparedness and strengthening early warning systems to early action systems. And I'm really delighted to have all of you here, policymakers, practitioners, researchers, and many colleagues from our civil societies joining from Pan India. So before I start inviting our speakers, let me discuss some little bit about anticipatory action. We are meeting here just because India is entering in this year's monsoon season. Last year, we all witnessed that rainfall was around 108% of the long period average. And thousands of heavy rainfall events we all have experienced in many states. And cascading impacts across states. And this monsoon is no longer just a seasonal event, and now it is an intensive risk that demands smarter, faster, and more inclusive preparedness. We all are experiencing this almost in all the states in India. So the core challenge which we need to address through anticipatory action, like despite significant advance in our early warning system, a critical gap persists, translating early warning system into the community level understanding and where it should reach on the time with the simplified language and how we can simplify the science, the science of early warning. So the last mile people, those who have to use these early warning messages, they can use on time with their actionable items and locally relevant actions. Globally, also we experience like half of the population which is living in the risk and not receiving the timely early warnings and not able to act on the time to protect themselves. And today's webinar is about closing that gap through anticipatory action. So when we say anticipatory action, those who are like the old practitioners like me, those who are in the sector for more than 2 decades, earlier we were doing the intensive kind of CBDRR, like community-based disaster risk reduction. But now we all are experiencing the area, the span is very high and season become very intensive. So we cannot handle the intensive work catering the whole population of our country. Why don't we dependent on the early actions where the early warnings can be predefined and trigger-based actions can be activated before the hazard fully unfolds by linking forecast to risk threshold and pre-agreed responses. It reduces exposure and protect lives and livelihoods, especially human, animals, and also their livelihoods. So it will not impact more of their life this. I'm so sorry for the bad throat. The monsoon with its day-to-day weeks lead time in one of the best opportunities we have to put into the practice. So we have a huge population to cater, and obviously we are having a lack of resources. So how within those resources, within that knowledge, how we can cater this huge population. So within the days or the weeks time, the lead time, we can support the community and put these practices into the community's knowledge. This webinar brings together experts from IMD, FAO, UNICEF, field lessons, and also practical strategies. So they already doing that, already practicing that. And we hope it sparks ideas you can also take directly to your field area. And before starting this session, just there are some housekeeping rules. Please keep your microphones muted unless you are not speaking. Use the chat box for the question answer, or maybe if you would like to share any of your insights, any of your experience, or maybe you would like to put the detail of your organization, your work. So chat box is yours. It is completely open for you, but try to speak only when you are allowed to speak. You can also mention the name of expert to whom you are asking this question, so he or she can answer your question. We will also have dedicated question answer session at the end of the webinar. So thank you so much, everyone. Now I'm inviting our first speaker. We have Mr. O.P. Srijit ji. He is scientist and head climate monitoring and uh, uh, prediction group CRS IMD Pune. Sir is here. Uh, Nupur.
Yes, ma'am. Sir
Nupur.
is here. Yes, yes.
Welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Shall I share my?
Sir, there
Sir,
seems to be
yes.
an audio issue. I think you have to speak louder.
Okay, 1 minute. I'll take that.
Your voice is actually very faint. I think we can't hear you well.
Yeah. Mic. Now it is okay. Hello. Now it is okay.
Yes, sir. Better, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Better,
okay,
sir.
okay. Okay, I will share my screen. Where is that? I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, sir. We can see.
Okay.
Sir, you can put on the slideshow mode.
That isn't now.
Yeah,
It is
perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity for this presentation. And I'm going to talk about what is the current, what is the forecast for post-monsoon season rainfall this year, and what are the large-scale drivers that is going to impact our monsoon rainfall, and that how the that past in the large scale in this year, that is there is a chance for development of El Nino during this southwest monsoon period. So during the El Nino years, we are generally we are getting that less rainfall. So we have to, but however, this year during the El Nino years also, day-to-day variations are higher also. So we may get some area, we may get very good rainfall also. But however, overall that average rainfall over the country will be less. I will go through the details. First, I will talk about that large scale climate drivers. That is this year. The ANSO forecast is indicating that there is a chance for development of El Nino during the JJA period, that is June, July, August period, that is 92%. That means we are going to experience that, and so El Nino impact in the beginning of the monsoon itself. And the left panel, it is showing the probability forecast for El Nino, neutral, and La
Sir,
Nina.
sorry to interrupt. Can you
Yes.
be little louder, sir? Little louder, sir.
Yes. During this left panel, you can see three colors. That is.
So it's more faint now. Will it be possible for you to maybe disconnect the earphones? Maybe it will be better then.
Then now it is okay.
Yes, much
Yes,
better.
sir. Yes, sir. Better.
I have to.
It looks like it got dropped off. Divya ma'am, I'll just call Shrijit sir and find out if there's any issue.
Sure, sure,
And maybe
sure.
in the meantime, since Snowbird ma'am is also yet to join, we can invite Damien for his session, and then we can take it from there.
Sure, sure. Is he here?
Yes,
I
yes.
am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 yes. So now I welcome other speaker, Mr. Raymond. He's Regional Anticipatory Action Specialist with FAO, Regional Office for Asia Pacific. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen, and I
Yes.
hope that everything works properly. So here are my slides. Just wanted to mention that I will be speaking on behalf of the Regional Technical Working Group on Anticipatory Action. Of course, I'm working with FAO, but I'm leading a number of sub-working group of the Regional Technical Working Group on Anticipatory Action. I'll be talking about the way to design triggers for flood anticipatory action. And I wanted to start my short presentation with the results of the very recent anticipatory action mapping exercise we did in Asia and the Pacific. I want to insist that there are growing number of anticipatory action frameworks in the region. And you can see that we started the mapping exercise back in 2023. So 2025 was the third iteration of the mapping. We started with 13 countries 2 years ago, and we have reached in 2025 to 18 countries, including India. We expect that we will reach nearly 25 countries in 2026. And you can see that the number of frameworks is growing steadily. In the region, we had 101 frameworks 2 years ago, and we have identified 169 anticipatory action frameworks in 2025. The majority, 44% of the frameworks in Asia and the Pacific are really focusing on the flood hazard, way above the other hazards, which are drought, typhoon, and among the last category, we see a growing number of frameworks for heat wave. We had 11 heat wave anticipatory action frameworks in 2025. But again, looking at the big share of the frameworks focusing on flood, I will be logically speaking about this particular hazard, which has a significant impact in our region. I want to quickly highlight that having anticipatory action framework in place is not the objective of the work we are doing. I believe that our objective is to be able to use it. And that's why we are very much looking at the identifying and mapping those frameworks which are being used and are activating based on the forecast before the extreme predictable hazard materialize. So you can see that in 2025, we had around 29 anticipatory action framework activating in the region, mostly in countries where anticipatory action concept has been tested for maybe a bit longer time. The pioneer countries in the region are Bangladesh, Philippines, and Nepal. Quickly followed by Pakistan and I think Vietnam. But you can see that the majority of the activation took place in the Philippines, Bangladesh, and growing number in Pakistan. And most of the, a large share of the activations were focusing on extreme flood events. So there is, I think, a good number of learnings accumulated in the region on how to develop anticipatory action triggers for flood and how to use these anticipatory action triggers for delivering anticipatory assistance before the peak of the flood or before the peak of the impacts. I'll talk now about the key elements that you may consider when developing anticipatory action triggers. And I'll start with two slides explaining why we are developing triggers for anticipatory action and why it's differing from the traditional forecast that have been provided by national hydrometeorological agencies across our region, and how it will contribute to triggers to early warning. And it's important to make the difference between forecast, triggers, and early warning. It's not the same, but they are contributing one to the other. So let's start with the basis, and I guess I don't really need to explain what is a forecast, even though there are different type of forecast, short-term, medium range, seasonal forecast that we are all very familiar with. And you might assume that the more precise the forecast is, the more confident we are with the information we can provide in either early warning or for triggering anticipatory action. Maybe a short highlight that we are more and more moving away from hazard forecast, which are providing an information on the magnitude of the event, towards impact forecast, which will inform on what the weather will do and what will be the, let's say, number of houses affected or percentage of fields that might be underwater in the case of a flooding event. So the forecast will inform early warning. Early warning should include information on what type of event is anticipated, what is going to happen, when it might happen, what will be the severity of this event, and what ideally what people should do. But what we are seeing is that for humanitarian sector or for sectoral intervention, we might really need to know what is expected where and when, with a very clear indication on the severity of the event. And it's very, very crucial because we might not need to use anticipatory action every time there is a cyclone in the Philippines. There are 20 cyclones every year in the Philippines. Not all of them would require to evacuate livestock or to protect houses, especially with ropes and perhaps sandbags. We want to be able to use anticipatory action when and where the impact will be significant and will overwhelm the capacity of the individuals or the community to absorb the impact. What we are starting to see is that, and I will not go into detail, sorry, it's a very, very recent slide that we used in a training on anticipatory action. But what I wanted to say is that we really see the value of using forecast for triggering anticipatory action, and the trigger information might really inform the early warning for early action. What is happening in most of the countries where we are working on anticipatory action is that we are very much developing the trigger methodologies in parallel with the national early warning system, because we were missing some of the needed information on impacts and severity of the event that would justify the need to activate our anticipatory action frameworks. So the second arrow between trigger and early warning system is missing in most of the countries where we have anticipatory action activities. But that's the objective. We want to be able to properly link forecast to trigger models that will inform early warning system and will facilitate the delivery of assistance or the launching of individual anticipatory action if there is no need to provide humanitarian support in certain areas. Very quickly, for developing triggers for anticipatory action, we have identified 4 key elements. First, we want to know which forecast is the best and is providing the most accurate information with the appropriate lead time. In a country like Bangladesh, where flood anticipatory action have been developed in Jamuna River Basin and in the Aor River Basin, the lead time is very different. For the Jamuna River Basin, they can use up to 10 days lead time for starting the monitoring and the forecasting of what might happen in certain areas of the Jamuna River Basin. For the Aor River Basin, the maximum lead time for preparedness is 5 days, and for activation, they are expecting to use a forecast providing a 3 days lead time for intervention. So depending on which river and which location, the lead time might vary. The forecast is very often a forecast provided by the National Hydrometeorological Office, but in certain countries, if that information is not available at the right frequency and with the proper accuracy, we might be considering using additional forecasts coming from global or regional models providers. Sorry. The third block of the anticipatory action trigger is possibly the most challenging one because we want to define this trigger point called threshold, which will indicate when to activate anticipatory action because the predicted severity of the event is reaching a critical stage. So we need to be able to define this critical stage with an indication on the magnitude of the event or the potential impact. I will take 1 minute to explain a bit more how to define the thresholds. And then the last element that you need for triggering anticipatory action is to define who is going to be responsible for validating the trigger decision and how this information is going to be disseminated to key sectors of the government, to humanitarian actors, and possibly to people who are at risk. So the one very, very key element if you want to develop a trigger for flood anticipatory action is certainly to understand what are the key losses and impacts that have been historically happening in a particular river basin, and that should be collected, let's say, for maybe the past 50 years for the key sectors at risk, working with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, we are very much interested in collecting the loss in the crop subsector, in the livestock crop sector, or the aquaculture crop sector, subsector. With this information in mind, we can understand when the magnitude of the hazard is considered critical and would require anticipatory action. And we can also, in certain contexts, predict statistically what a specific river level would cause in a certain location based on historical losses that have been collected. What we would use, for instance, is the percentage of rice crop, for example, or wheat crop that have been affected by a flood in a certain location in the past 30 to 50 years. Please keep in mind that for flood, you will certainly need multiple thresholds for intervention. This little graph, which was developed by our colleagues in Bangladesh, is showing that growing water level in a river basin might affect different sectors at different time. Very often, the first sector that is affected by a growing level of the river will be the agriculture sector. Then, in most of the context, house might be the next sector at risk, and possibly after the transportations, the roads and the public transport will be at risk. So you might have a trigger for anticipatory action that is a little bit low, focusing on protecting agriculture sector from the impact of flood. Then you might have a second threshold a bit higher, which will release intervention to protect households. And then possibly, but that's a little bit out of our control, actions that could protect major communication lines, but that would require heavy machinery. But certainly, as a humanitarian actor, we would focus at FAO on protecting farmers, livestock owners with livestock evacuation, and possibly aquaculture in certain areas by maybe pre-harvesting the ponds to save the seedlings that might be lost during a flood event. Two possible threshold that you might consider. One of the easy methodology would be to calculate for given location what is the critical water level that will have a significant impact, let's say, on the agriculture sector. So you can see on the left an example of an impact curve developed in the Philippines, in the second biggest river basin of the Philippines, where we try to correlate a water level at a specific point with the percentage of crop that had been affected in the past. And that shows that for a water level of 12 meters at the Buntoon Bridge, there would be 50% of the crop reported lost in historical events. And we estimate that this value, the 12-meter of water level at this specific bridge, will be our critical threshold for which we would want to, if forecasted, for which we would want to undertake some protective actions. The problem of this methodology correlating magnitude, hazard magnitude with a particular loss is that you have to define this threshold at every location where you would want to do anticipatory action, and that can be a little bit cumbersome. So that's why we are starting to move away from hazard-based threshold to impact-based threshold. But for that, you need to develop a specific model that will be able to translate the forecasted water level or forecasted flow value into an impact. And that's something we are trying to develop in a number of countries in the agriculture sector, so that we know if this flood is being predicted, what will be the impact in the crop subsector or in the livestock subsector, and then we can decide to undertake some protective action. With an impact-based threshold, you don't need to develop multiple thresholds because it will be only one threshold, which could be 50% of the crop affected, will be the justification if forecasted for anticipatory action. I think that was my last slide. Sorry, I tried to not be to talk too much, but just wanted to stress one last time that there is a lot of learnings in Asia and the Pacific, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from Philippines, and if there is any question, I will be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very important and very useful insights you have shared. Like you already mapped 18 countries where this kind of anticipatory actions are, happening, and 169 different type of frameworks on heat wave, drought, flood, cyclone, and many other hazards they are experiencing. And we could observe like number of actions are increased from 2024 to 25. And it is very important to understand what kind of event is going to happen, where the exact location it is going to happen, and how soon, the time period is very important when it is going to happen, and how bad the severity of the event, to understand it very important, and how what people can do, what community and the stakeholders can do, that is very important to understand. Based on that, our framework can help and forecast and its trigger, and how our early warning system can help on it. And it is very important aspect you share, sir, like which forecast to use, like what kind of forecast is there and which forecast to use, and with what lead time, maybe the days, maybe the week, or the hours, maybe in sometimes, because we are working in a very river lead areas, where even the hours, if in case any particular area recharge the water, then in that case many times even the hours time, it's a lead hours for us, lead time for us. And when to activate and where early warning or early actions will be provided to the clear kind of threshold, and which kind of threshold can be used, maybe one or maybe different type of threshold can be used, and who is responsible for monitoring, and how to confirm the activation. So it is very important, and historical data of that particular area, what kind of impact has happened in the past, it's very important. That shows the vulnerability, that shows the local level practices, and that shows the time period of the impact. So and also how we can manage the transportation, and what kind of impact will happen on the household, and especially the agriculture and animal husbandry kind of livelihoods, because they are the directly affected in terms of floods, in terms of drought, in terms of heat waves. So it's very important aspect you share, sir. Thank you so much. So Nupur, to whom I can invite now?
Mr. Srijit is back. Srijit sir is back, so maybe we can talk about forecast, and then we'll move on to the next speakers.
So now I again invite sir from IMD, Mr. OP Srijit sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry for the
welcome back, sir. No problem, sir. No problem, sir. Sir, please go ahead, sir.
And there's now it is screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry for the technical issue.
No problem.
This is the ENSO forecast this year. The El Nino is going to develop during the southwest monsoon season. So the forecast from May, it is indicating that there is a chance for 98.92% of probability for percentage of probability for getting El Nino event. The other climate models, majority of the models are indicating that the El Nino is going to develop during the season. And if you see that usually that is El Nino time, that what is happening is that Central Pacific, Equatorial Central Pacific region, Central to Eastern Pacific region, we are getting above normal sea surface temperature. And because of that warming in the sea surface temperature, the atmospheric circulation will change. And accordingly, we are getting that less rainfall during maritime continent and Indian subcontinent during the El Nino period. the left panel, it is showing that our SST forecast spatial pattern, and the forecast from the India coupled model from India Meteorological Department also indicating that probability of development of El Nino during the monsoon season. And another important feature, driver that is sometimes help to compensate that negative impact of the El Nino, that is the Indian Ocean dipole. However, this year that El Nino Indian Ocean dipole, it is indicating that forecast indicating that neutral IOD condition over the Indian Ocean. And majority of some of the models are showing the end of this the monsoon season also. There is a chance to develop that positive IOD. But that means this year that impact from the negative impact from the El Nino is not going to compensate much with the Indian Ocean dipole. Another factor that is controlling that large scale monsoon in the beginning of the monsoon setup is the snow cover over Eurasia. There is an inverse relationship between the snow cover and Indian summer monsoon rainfall. But this year that is slightly negative rainfall. So we may get that there is this is one favorable factor for getting some rainfall during the summer monsoon. In 2021 onwards, India Meteorological Department started adopted new strategy for issue the outlook for the first stage in the mid-April. We are issuing the forecast for the Indian region, and along with that we are giving that probability forecast for the three category: above normal, normal, below normal for the entire country with a spatial resolution of 25 kilometer, and the updated forecast we are issuing in the end of May, and along with that we are issuing that forecast for June, and subsequently every month we are issuing monthly forecast for July, and July we will issue that forecast for the second half of the monsoon season also. And the core monsoon, homogeneous region and core monsoon forecast also we are issuing in the second stage forecast. As for our first stage forecast, we are expecting that the below normal rainfall during the summer monsoon season, and if we have category wise, if you can see that above normal to excess category is very less, and below normal to deficient category is 31 and 35% respectively, which is more than almost double the climatological probability of the rainfall. And this is the probability of southwest monsoon season rainfall during June to September. In the first stage, we have indicated that below normal seasonal rainfall likely over most part of the country, except that northeast India and some regions of northwest and some south peninsular India, also some region where we may expect normal to above normal rainfall. However, most of the other region we are expecting that below normal rainfall. That main reason is that the development of El Nino. As if you can see that in 1901 to current, that there are Indian summer monsoon anomaly. If we have plotted here, we can see that red color, it is indicated that year is associated with El Nino, and blue color it is the La Nina, and green color is the neutral answer. So you can see that most of the large scale, deficiency happened during the summer monsoon rainfall associated with El Nino impact. And if you can see that historically, from 1951 to 2023, there were all the 17 El Nino years. During that 7 of this El Nino year, we got that we have below normal Indian summer monsoon rainfall, indicating that there is a chance of very good chance for the below normal rainfall, but there is no one-to-one correspondence between ISMR and El Nino. However, if you can analyze that in which area during the monthly as well as the seasonal during the season, which area we may experience a good rainfall. The bottom panel, it is indicating that June to September rainfall during the El Nino years. You can see that Northeast India and some Northeast India, it is mainly because we may expect a good rainfall. They are most of the part of the country we have experiencing the expected less rainfall. However, month-wise there is a large differences there. You can see that for the June there is a chance for getting good rainfall over the South Peninsula as well as the Northeast India. And August we may expect more rainfall on the northwestern foothills of Himalaya, mainly because during the El Nino years, we may expect a more break-like situation, monsoon break. So the monsoon trough is shifting into that foothills of Himalaya. So we may get some rainfall there also. And another thing is that if we analyze that the rainfall trend during last many years, we can see all India summer monsoon rainfall, there is not much trend, not significant trend. And in Northwest India, there is a slight decreasing trend is there. And Northeast India, you can see significant decreasing trend you can see in the rainfall for the rainfall series. And Central India also, we can see slight increase, and the South Peninsula also slight increase is there. And overall core monsoon zone, that is this rain-fed area in the over the Indian region, that also there is a slight increasing trend you can see. And in addition to this seasonal forecast, we have to use that other forecast for monthly and the subseasonal and medium range and shorter range forecast for taking the climate risk. So that first we will plan something based on our seasonal forecast, and then we can get more better planning we can do with monthly output, and then for the weekly and the subseasonal forecast may be useful taking that our anticipatory actions. And this year southwest monsoon onset is happened over the South Andaman Sea on 16th April. And IMD also issued that monsoon outlook onset over Kerala, the outlook for that. That is on, we expect that is little early, that is 26th May. The normal date is June 1st is the normal date of onset. And we are, as a regional climate center of India Meteorological Department, we are coordinating the South Asia Climate Outlook Forum for issuing the outlook for the South Asia region. In that, we have conducted the 34th session in 28 April last month, and we have issued the outlook for the Indian region. That is, as we have mentioned in our national forecast. The other region, that is the Northeast as well as the Myanmar region and Afghanistan region, there is a chance to get good rainfall, as well as the southern part, that is Sri Lanka and the Maldives may get good rainfall. And the temperature, that is above normal maximum and minimum temperature expected over the season. And we can, as a summary, we can see southwest monsoon season for June to September rainfall for the country as a whole was the below normal category. That is the quantitatively we have can say that is 92% of the plus or model error of plus or minus 5%. And especially we have seen that most of the country we may experience less rainfall. However, Northeast India and some regions of the peninsular India, we may expect good above normal rainfall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we have one question in the chat box. As I said, this year, IMD has forecast an early monsoon onset along with the below normal long-term rainfall outlook in some regions. A similar situation was seen in 2009 when the monsoon reached Kerala unusually early on May 2023, but the season later turned into one of the India's major drought year with a nearly 23% deficit rainfall due to prolonged dry spell. So is it expected this year also?
This year, as per our first forecast, we are expecting that below normal, but we will our second update we will check that what is the response of the El Nino for the Indian summer monsoon from the climate model. Then we can update that. But as of currently, we are expecting that below normal. But there is in our probability forecast also there is a good chance of getting that below normal. That is drought also probability is higher. For example, that 35% of deficit, that is more than it is climatological probability, and that is the highest for probability. But quantitatively, now currently we are getting that value for 92% of below normal, very close to that the deficient scale. But large scale that we can tell the update forecast at that time we will issue. Hope I have clarified that now.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing us this monsoon train and a strategy for the long range forecast system. And you have also shared us the data from 21 to 26 and also the high range data from 1951 to 23, June to September months, what kind of situation were there every year. And also this year's forecast, especially the northeast area. Like we have our colleague from UNICEF Assam office, and he is working there in northeast area. So I hope this information will help everyone. And this interannual information was very important to understand and also understand how this variable will help us to support community in making their early warning system. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So we are not having the second speaker here. So now I'll invite the fourth speaker, Mr. Anand. Mr. Anand, are you there? Yeah. Thank you, Anand. So we have Anand. He is Program Specialist, Risk and Resilience, Northeast India, UNICEF office. And he will be sharing us understanding vulnerability in monsoon preparedness and forecasting at risk populations through early actions. And he's working in Northeast. So every year we are witnessing the floods kind of situation in Assam and other states of Northeast. And he will be sharing more case studies and more experiences from his area and also from Pan India. Thank you, Anand, for joining us. Looking forward.
Thank you, Rebecca. I hope I'm audible. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
It was really kind of last 30-40 minutes were really enriching. We learned from two different kinds of experts. Damien brought in the practitioner perspective where the science was informing action on the ground, while Srijit ji talked about the how basically science is giving us long range forecasts and how we can think of localizing those forecasts, linking it with precise warning and triggers, etc. So what I have been asked to talk about is on understanding vulnerabilities. So what I thought and what I structured my presentation is more to, because in Indian context we do not necessarily have a written down anticipatory action framework or plan endorsed by the government. While different components of anticipatory action exist, we do not necessarily fully kind of fit into the frame of the global AA framework, as we have seen Damien talking about. So I'll touch base on some of the examples and experiences on how anticipatory action is currently practiced and how different dimensions of vulnerability is looked at, with an example of how the state government in Assam is kind of looking at it, and being UNICEF, we are kind of supporting the government in some of those initiatives. All of those are led by government of Assam. So let me start with this. I think both our speakers in some way or the other touched down on some elements. For India, what we need to understand is our context is very complex. Our context is very diverse. So we, even, forecast, we have inter and intra-region diversities. Within region, we have intra-state dynamics. Within state, we have intra-district dynamics. And then, this entire complexity, when we talk about, for example, river basin, a river basin itself is so complex. For example, in Assam alone, we have more than 148 river networks contributing to two major river systems, the Brahmaputra and the Barak. But it is a network of around 148 major and minor river systems. So the complex is, the situation or the context of risk is very complex. We also see that, the anticipatory action context cannot sit on what I say is that on an understanding which is very constant, because that has to sit in an understanding which is very evolving, because we have existing risks and we have emerging risks colliding with the existing risk, creating that complexity that we are talking about. Then we also need to understand that because we have a system-led approach in India, while uncertainties are increasing, our established practices are not that much agile to kind of immediately adapt to the increasing uncertainties. And that's where you see that households, communities, and systems are at the crossroad, because these complexities make any framework thinking a bit challenging. While everything becomes Indianized, and within India, different contexts, different regions, for example in Northeast, any kind of initiative, any kind of framework gets contextualized because of this understanding. Now, when I look at this from a lens of pure definition of what anticipatory action is, so when we talk of a set of agreed interventions, which are definitely there, and I'll unpack how they are there, which can lead to reducing or mitigating impact of hazard. But the big question is the impact on whom. And that's where the concept of vulnerability lies, that if you are more vulnerable, the impact is likely to be more on those. And those vulnerabilities can have different dimensions. And we all know or work on some or the other dimensions of it. But how do we look at the entirety of vulnerability when we talk of early action to mitigate or reduce impact? So, this understanding of forecast, trigger, and the time period between preparedness and response, because early anticipatory action has to happen between the preparedness, between the early warning and the response bit. And that's as our previous speakers mentioned, and I like what Damien said, that this is a two-way sword. If you have too much of lead time, that means you're on the one hand you have good amount of time to execute your pre-agreed actions, but at the same time that means your the warning the warning has not been precise enough. And so when we understand how anticipatory action can complement preparedness, preparedness is based on generally established practices. For example, in Assam, we have a pre-monsoon, and then a monsoon, and then a post-monsoon rainfall. And our preparedness starts even before the pre-monsoon season, when the districts convene meetings with stakeholders. They start discussing what was our experience last year, what was the impact on ground, what were the gaps, how should we prepare better. But when we talk about anticipatory action, it is more precise, because that's when the IMD, that's when the different established systems come into place. And I'll touch upon briefly on those, and also reflect on how we can link vulnerabilities. So as I mentioned earlier, when we say vulnerability, as I said, vulnerability now has a definition included in the Disaster Management Act, which was amended last year. So when we look at the definition that was adopted by Government of India through the amendment to the Disaster Management Act, it talks about the processes related to physical, social, economic, and environmental factors that ultimately increases a person's susceptibility, because of these factors, or a combination of these factors, an individual or a household or a community becomes relatively more vulnerable than the others in the period of onset of any hazards. And there are different dimensions. So to exemplify, I have kept some simple examples here. So when we talk about physical example, we have a host of conditions. So even our flood prone areas, say for example in Assam, we have riverine islands which are known as chars and chaporis. We have conventional low-lying flood-prone areas. Then we have urban flood areas. All those different areas in different geoclimatic contexts have a different kind of, or the level of vulnerability, which are which have physical dimensions. For example, housing. For example, the geographical location, the context of road for evacuation. And then the social groups. We have children. Within children, it's such a diverse group. Not all children are equally vulnerable. Within children, we have children with disabilities. Within children, we have children who are malnourished, who are severely malnourished. Within children, there are different levels of, or layers of vulnerability, which make them relatively more vulnerable compared to their peers. Similarly, we have elderly, we have persons with disability, we have women within women, we have pregnant women, and so on and so forth. So the context that we need to understand is that vulnerability is very local, while triggers are also supposed to be defined locally. Currently and practically, they are not that much local in nature. So we have, if you look at systematically, we have one institutional plan at the district level, that is called the District Disaster Management Plan. Ideally, below district, we need to have the local level plans, the panchayat level disaster management plans, village level disaster management plans, but they do not necessarily are in the shape and structure which can guide a trigger-based local action at present. So when we look at the overall system of how vulnerability is kind of integrated in a trigger-based pre-agreed action framework, it's more on the larger framework than on the locally contextual, locally defined trigger versus locally defined vulnerabilities. So that's a limited context that we need to understand and act on, and where the complexity layer increases in a context like India. Coming to what experiences I was talking about, when we look at some of the examples, see fundamental pillars of anticipatory action talks about pre-agreed financing, pre-agreed triggers, and pre-agreed actions. So when we unpack those in our existing system within the government, there are some good practices. For example, in Assam, there is a system of pre-agreed financing where the allocated resources under State Disaster Response Fund are pre-released before the monsoon season to the districts based on the impact history and certain vulnerability criteria. So the districts, particularly the district commissioners, have a pre-agreed financing to take up certain actions which are between not only related to preparedness, but also actions which are between the impact-based forecast to the actual onset of the emergency. So that kind of this kind of an initiative exists. Also, to look at, to substantiate this, we have our multi-hazard early warning systems. Assam has its own one integrated mobile application called Assam Smart Okhom. We have the flood early warning system developed by Northeast Space Application Center. We have our lightning early warning systems, and then the national level application called Sachet. All of them together, ensure that the warning is accessible, is reaching the last mile through the use of technology, which is currently gaining ground across the country. When we look at what translates warning into action, so there are guidelines, there are SOPs in place. For example, when we look at anticipatory action for floods, we need to also understand with the warning, we also need to have preparations for the internally displaced population who will be evacuated. So we have guidelines for assured minimum facilities and services in relief camps, which necessarily define the framework for different vulnerable groups and how their differential needs have to be taken care of. So the moment the forecast is made and the triggers, which are kind of locally experiential, not that model based, but they are reached, the camps are being readied, the facilities defined for different vulnerable groups are also kind of activated. So that's how locally it is being implemented in Assam. We also have different risk informed systems. For example, one scheme called Pradhan Mantri Matru Bandhana Yojana, which is a maternity benefit scheme, there is an SOP which provides a series of anticipatory actions linked to floods that has to be taken to make that maternity benefit scheme work for women, pregnant ladies who are affected by floods or at risk of floods. And then we have our real-time reporting system called disaster reporting and information management system, through which monitoring and kind of real-time decision making happens in the course of response. And that this the uniqueness of this DRIMS is that it is not response centric, because this report is published from the month of April to the end of October. The entire season, every day, the situation report is produced by the government from ground data. So, it kind of helps us look at also the time between when the forecasts are made to the actual impact is achieved. Having said all these good things, we also know that there are certain challenges. I touched upon some of these when I talked about the difficulty between forecast locally contextual triggers and defining locally contextual thresholds, because mostly our responses are structurally led by districts, then by the local administration at the circle level, who actually lead the village or the panchayat level system to respond. So the framework thinking is still at the district level or at the circle level. On financing, even if I say that there is financing available with the districts, but these financings are tied to certain norms that are laid down by Government of India, and they do not necessarily provide all the flexibilities that would be needed to make flexibly, pre-agreed financing work flexibly. Though I mentioned that we have a disaster reporting and information management system, but the sectoral data is still fragmented. So the data related to health system, education system, even the protection system, the livelihood system, they exist in different MISs, which still have not been made interoperable to make a comprehensive picture on deciding the extent of impact, understanding the historical extent of impact on across systems, and then coming up with those triggers and thresholds which are based on impact together. So because they are still fragmented in different systems, it is a big challenge. Another important thing to note is that we operate in an environment where different flagship programs lead the resource allocation and implementation action sectors. And these flagship programs are guided by different guidelines. And these guidelines are not that flexible, so to say. And that's why, the local contextuality is to a certain extent limited. When we say, thresholds and action protocols, again, because, in the frame of things like the anticipatory action framework experience that Bangladesh or Nepal has, which Damian was mentioning. We do not have necessarily such a modeled trigger framework defined in our plans. And that's why some of these are subject to interpretation, and we act based on the stakeholders' interpretation of those triggers, depending on the plans that they have, the disaster management plans they have. And again, catching on what Damien was saying from the Indonesian experience, here also we are gradually seeing a narrowing down of the space between humanitarian development, humanitarian space, because what I say usually, it's a time, any time of the year, either we are responding to floods or we are recovering. And even before we recover, we are also preparing for the next wave of flood. So, in a way, we are always in some sort of the phase of humanitarian, humanitarian response management cycle, rather than there is no difference between the humanitarian and development cycles altogether. And at the end, even if we see progress at the end, development milestones and targets remain separate from the so-called resilience targets, because the development push, which are pushed through the existing systems and the layers, the development milestones, they operate in a different speed. They operate in a different context when there is no emergency versus when there is an emergency. So, and that's the biggest challenge. The moment there is a non-emergency lean period, priorities shift. And that's where some of the challenges, in making the system more efficient to deal with the emerging context arise. So let me stop here, and I'll welcome any thought from the colleagues.
Thank you, Anand. Really very important, insights you share. Like, it is very important to understand the inter and intra-region divergent and emerging risks. There are already risks. Community calculate and make our action based on that. And what kind of systems are already there, and what are the practices there, and what kind of vulnerability they are living. And all three timelines are important: prior to crisis and post forecast, when we have lead time to run the anticipatory action, and also during and post emergency, how we can handle the relief and we can save the community. And there are 4 important aspects you shared. Number 1 is a physical, number 2 is a social, number 3 is a environmental, number 4 is a economic. And all 4 factors are very important, because not every family is living with the same kind of challenge, same kind of problem. And this is the reason we need to cover practices. And there are very good system you shared, which is I'm not sure which is already happening in other states also. Maybe in some state I'm not aware, but this is a very good practice in Assam. Like, based on the forecast, they transfer some fund to the district administration to handle the situation, which is very good practice. And I hope the other states will also try to practice this. And these different apps at the national level, and also in Assam you have, and guidelines and SOPs which are already there, and disaggregated information in the real time, so that information can be used for the running the anticipatory action among the community. I would also like to add some of the points here in your points. Like, when we say the forecast system, we are already at the very strong forecast system in our country, but still we need to simplify that early warning system, where community members can understand in their local languages, in a very simplified language, and also what kind of action they have to make based on that information or message. That should also be included. Where the role of NGOs, the role of grassroots function, their role. Now this is our turn to play our role to make it more simplified, and make it more actionable, and reduce the time of those messages which can reach to the community members. And also like flexibility in the funding. It's not like predefined structure may not help every time. There is need for the flexibility in the funding system, which Assam is already doing very good, and I'm sure other state will also learn from it. And fragmented data system, that is already there. We all are experiencing. We all are collecting some data, but there are data available and can be utilized for the benefit of all the stakeholders, and complex procedure is there. And one very important aspect you share, like humanitarian practices and also the continuity of your development work. I give you example from your state only. When last year we were working in Karimganj district, we interacted with many students, many young students. They were telling every year, whenever flood comes, the result of board exam, the 10th board exams result and the 12th standards board exam result always get affected. So obviously the student, those who are appearing in 10th board or 12th board, their life definitely get affected. Their future career definitely get affected. So we should also run this development support, how we can continue their education, continue the food supply, continue their health services along with the humanitarian action. It is very much important continuity of our development practice business. So thank you so much, Anand. Very well you articulate. Now, Nupur, do we have our second speaker, or should I invite the last speaker?
No, I think ma'am was unable to join, so we can maybe
Is she
invite.
here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, no problem.
Maybe
No,
invite her.
no problem. So now I will invite Mr. Rupam Das. He's project manager in ADRA India, and he will be talking about uh, community-based preparedness and early action field insights. Because ADRA is working on early anticipatory action for last 2-3 years, and last year they have come out with very good documents also, especially related to heat waves, and also they work very closely to the government. So Rupamji, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Divyaji, and good evening, everyone. It was very insightful to hear from my previous speaker, and of course, I work very closely with Anand, and we have closed in other projects together. And what he pointed out about this system-led process that we follow in India, and now we are bringing in this anticipatory action framework, their marriage is going to take some time. I'm speaking from the experience of delivering this anticipatory action pilot project in Majuli, where I'll try to bring forward some insights from, what kind of response I'm getting in the field. So anticipatory action, although it's not a new concept for the world, for India, especially for our systems, it is quite new. For our people, even in we are working in Majuli, which is a hugely flood-affected area, which has lost is more than 50% of landmass in last 50 years. So people have learned to live with disasters, especially floods and riverbank erosion. They keep on shifting from here and there. They live in high raised platform houses, but they are not being able to stop that cycle of loss of their livelihoods, their assets, the critical infrastructure year after year. So when I, first went and met with the district commissioner there and told them that we are thinking of doing this pilot in Majuli, because in India, I think anticipatory action has been promoted in piecemeal manner by many NGOs, but we don't have that model which will inform the system to kind of lead to adoption, which Anand was speaking earlier. So when I explained the concept to them and what we want to do here, it was quite new for them. And there are like 3-4 critical questions, even from the community that came. Number one, is it just a very fancy theory? Is there any proof that this is going to work? That was the number one question that comes to everybody's mind. Number two is what happens if we activate a early action and the disaster doesn't happen? So that's the number two, question that comes to everybody's mind. And then the issue arises of the penetration of the early warnings and the interpretation and the understandings of those early warnings at the grassroots level, which is a big issue because of the technicality of the language, access to smartphones, or even to understand the basic messages that goes to, and it goes to a certain level. It doesn't go to the last mile, and even if it goes, because of the social complexities and the linguistic complexities, it is not properly understood by everybody. So there is an information fatigue. People get a lot of early warning. They have, the apps Anand was mentioning about Smart Home and Sachet. Even those people, I was having this workshop with the local CSO members there in Majuli the other day, and they said they have these apps and there is a lot of forecast of windstorm and things like that that comes in. So it brings about an information fatigue, and people kind of tend to ignore those that this is not going to happen, it didn't happen last time. So how early warnings can be presented as an important thing to understand it better, and then forecast based and impact based and observation based triggers can measure the threshold and then activate early action. So all these concepts are quite new, and in fact technically very difficult to make it understand to the common people, to the village people. This word trigger, I was finding is very difficult to make it understand, to explain it to the village people that what is a trigger, how would they define their trigger, what thresholds they will keep to activate those triggers. So those are the reality. The field level realities that is we are facing. But then this is a challenge that we have undertaken, and this pilot we are demonstrating in Majuli, even we are new in this. We are not very old, and India itself is lagging behind most of the other countries in our continent. Like Bangladesh is doing very well in AA, Philippines, Nepal. They have done very well. We are still lagging behind. We are still learning. So we have taken up this challenge to demonstrate that early warning and early actions is effective in an area which has structural problems. We are working in Majuli. We have selected the villages which are like very vulnerable villages. They are on the mouth of two rivers. So on one side they have Subansiri, and the other side they have Brahmaputra. So they have structural issues. But even after, in a area with structural issue, how anticipatory action can still reduce the impact of loss to a certain degree, that we want to demonstrate to the people and as well as to the district administration, and then document the entire process so that we take it forward with other NGOs and district administration, even in the state level, that will inform them to kind of inculcate this anticipatory actions in their disaster management planning as a system approach. There are many activities people are doing in the field level which are part of anticipatory action. There are many activities that the district administrations are already doing which are early actions, but they don't see it as anticipatory action. They see it as their disaster management preparedness and planning exercise. So just to differentiate between them, we are working with village people. We are giving awareness on anticipatory action approach to the village people and its components. We are working with the local volunteers. We are working with civil society partners, and we are working with the government. Now, as far as early warning is concerned, so early warning is to some extent the early warning that goes from the district administration is to some extent curtailed to a degree so that there is no panic. This is a very, very, very just thought that we don't want to create unnecessary panic among the people. That's justifiable. But then, who is giving early warning? Who is the person, or what is the channel that the people of that village or villages should rely on or should accept? That is another question that we are working with the communities to understand. We have to create that communication tree where people can understand that this information has come from verifiable sources or dependable sources, and we can act on it. Because this fatigue, which you are mentioning, is another risk that we have to be cognizant of, that we activate our early action based on some triggers and thresholds that were met this year, but flood didn't happen. What if the next year again this happens? So people will eventually start to think that we are just doing futile exercise and this is not helping us. So that's something we have to avoid. So our triggers has to be very carefully developed with consultation from everybody, from district to the village level, and they have to understand the triggers. And there has to be a governance structure in the village which will ensure that in the proper time, within the proper lead time, the actions are activated. And also, increasingly, we have to think about making these actions less costly, less input heavy, and more ownership of the community members with actions which are locally justifiable, and also which are low cost, so that people this is also kind of a behavioral change that will take some time. The way people think, it will take some time for them to understand. And if the early actions, it demonstrate that they were able to save so many animals, such and such animals, and such crops, such and such assets, or they reinforce critical infrastructure based on the lead time as part of the early action. It supported them for their evacuation or their connectivity with the rest of the mainland. So these kind of results will bring about that change slowly in the people, that they have to take ownership of acting on their own behalf to protect their own assets and their lives and their livelihood and including livestock, rather than depending on somebody else to always come and support them, which people will come, government will come, NGOs like us will always go when there is a need. But that ownership has to be transferred to communities in a staggered manner. And anticipatory framework is something I think is a good way of achieving that. Yeah. So I'll stop with that.
Thank you, Rupam. Very, very important, experience you shared from Majuli and other areas, which ADRA and team members and with the community and the local government you experienced. And some of the very good insights came by the time in the chat box also. From Kavya, she was sharing key. It is very important to understand, make SOPs very inclusive, because there are people, those who are, living with the disability, there are pregnant women, there are lactating mothers, those who are requiring more assistance or different kind of assistance than other people. So how we can create our early warning system or our trigger system where each and every community members can easily access and also utilize that. Very good aspect, Kavya ji, you have shared. And I also wanted to discuss about the parametric insurance. Last few of the organizations in India, they utilize parametric insurance for this purpose, where a very good result has been seen. Especially in terms of cyclone in Andhra, many of the families received their compensation also the time government declared the cyclone. So similarly in the heat wave, one organization is working on the heat wave related parametric insurance, and they got a very good result last year. So within our ecosystem, we can also discuss how we can advocate practices like parametric insurance and other protecting and social protection schemes, which help people during this kind of emergencies. So thank you so much, Rupam, for sharing the very, real time experience from Majuli and area.
Yeah, and
Now we
also
are
it is
opening.
important to have just one more last point. It is also important to have
Please,
your
please.
sectoral triggers. it's not that you'll have same triggers for all the sectors. It's important that we have some triggers for education. We have some different, although there may be some commonalities, but different triggers for livelihood, things like that, so that you don't have to necessarily activate all the early actions when that trigger is made. Sectoral trigger are equally important as well as this inclusive thing. Yeah.
Very true. But what time you need to close your school or communicate school teachers and children to not come to school, and what time you need to provide information to the daily wage laborers, those who are working in an open area, or
Absolutely.
maybe trigger to your farmers, what time they have to cut their crop, how they can protect their crop. Very good. Very good aspect, Rupam. And also very one important point. Your point was matching with the Damien's point also. He was sharing who is responsible for monitoring among the governance and among the community member, and how to confirm the activation of anticipatory action is very important. Not like trigger you were telling. Some people can get confused with the triggers. Maybe it is a mock drill or it is a real time trigger. So that is very important during your preparedness to intimate people who is responsible for what, who is responsible for monitoring, and who is responsible to confirm the activation of anticipatory actions. So it is very important during preparedness. We need to intimate those informations. Very important aspect, Rupam. Thank you so much. Now I invite other colleagues, those who are part of this webinar. As a participant, they join, they are a sectoral colleague, and they are also experiencing the same kind of work. They are doing the similar kind of work in their area. So any of the colleague, if you would like to share any of your experience, maybe any of your insights, or any of your challenge you are facing in your area, please feel free, because one of our speaker could not join. So we have enough time where we can invite at least 2 to 3 participants in case if you would like to share any insights, share any challenge, maybe any experience from your own area. Yeah. Anybody. You can raise your hand and you can unmute yourself. Yeah, Dhruv, please. Dhruv, please go ahead. Please unmute. Yeah.
Okay, good evening to everyone. We have worked in Bahraich and Shravasti district, where we came to know about the monsoon and about rainy condition in Bahraich last year. We have planned our job so nicely, and there is no any casualty, and we have prepared our cropping pattern in that way. So we have shared the information given by Seeds India last year, and gave out rainy position and some experience from the field area. We know that there is no impact about the condition of flooding in Bahraich, and committee told me there will be no flooding in the area, and we have go with the experience of the community, and there is no losses of cropping, and we have planned in advance for the safety of the early cropping in the area, and they gained too much about perwal cropping and lauki, taroi, kaddu, all these crops. And the volunteers are very active in the villages, and they told and share their experience shared by Panchil Development Trust in the area, and committee got many benefit especially for the time, because the farmers have, if farmers have time, they will plan about their preparedness and their safety measures. So any information which save our time is so important, more than losses of the assets. Thank you.
Very, learn it exercise you done, Dhrubai and your team, like how you could reduce the casualty in that area during the flood. You shift people on very much on time, relocated them to the safer locations, and just little bit changes in the crop pattern, and the timeliness of crop could protect your agriculture production, and also activate local volunteers, those who could help the community. And that lead time, you would utilize that lead time very smartly to protect the community. Thank you, Dhrubai. Thank you so much. We have
Thank you.
Kavya ji. Kavya ji, unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I have shared a few inputs on the chat, but then I would also like to introduce myself a little bit. I'm architect Kavya Purnima. I'm from Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. I'm the founder of Purnamidam and IIH Warriors India. Purnamidam works at the intersection of architecture, environment, and disability related policy. As I come across my work in this space of disaster risk reduction and climate action, I wanted to share a few inputs from my experience. Like last year, when I had this working group consultations with the NDMA, we had couple of dialogue around disaster resilience and climate action. So from that, one of the recommendation positively taken from the department is that to revamp the Sachet app, where they can also integrate a layer where they can have a data dashboard from the district level, from like to have a data from the state level, so that they can curate the SOPs according to the specific disabilities. Currently we don't really have disaggregated data in the space of disability, so that is one of the drawback where we are actually talking about SOPs, right? Like how we can support different disabilities and their needs, but then when we don't have the data, we can't really do that. So to ensure that anyway census is going to happen, but then how best we can do from the existing frameworks is with the Sachet app, is something alongside the accessibility features I mentioned in the chat box, right? So that is one positive move that has been taken care by the NDMA, which is now in progress. So that is one thing I wanted to share. And the other thing is from the local context. I'm working in Visakhapatnam with the district administration. So here we have low-lying areas where we have urban flooding happening because we are prone to cyclones on and off, and that is one pilot project we did with the municipal corporation here in Visakhapatnam. So there, what we could do is to have a buddy system that we tried building with the community through WhatsApp, like different WhatsApp groups, where we tried making sure that it is led by women of that particular locality, and they were assigned to have 10 how like I mean one woman with 100 household within the colony. So that's how they have tried managing to have the communication, which we have sent to, like which we used to send to these leads. They used to communicate with the colony members. So that's how we have started this Vishaka Urban Praja Living Lab, which is now having a real-time data dashboard of that particular region, and we are now expanding it further to have another like large-scale project that can be. I mean, if that works out well, that can be also taken up as a best practice that we can ensure in other areas. So this is one kind of good practice that we could come across. But then interestingly, what we find from my organization is that there was no incorporation of persons with disabilities and how we can deal with this vulnerable aspects of it in terms of evacuation plans. When they are rehabilitated to shelter home, the shelter home is been considered as a school, like municipal school, or maybe an existing building which is on the top floor, like first floor or second floor. There it was a huge challenge to really manage the locomotor disabilities and other kinds of disabilities. So that is the actual point where our recommendation was considered that okay, this layer was missing, so we need to make sure that we need to like include people with disabilities in the planning stage. So that really worked out well in this pilot project, and then we could really map around 140 disabled people within this particular area, low-lying area. So that really helped us to advocate further with the district administration, and now we have received, like, they have received an award for that particular pilot, and they are receiving a grant of some, I mean, I'm not really sure of the number, but then I wanted to share it, that it's a positive move. So I mean, these are the thoughts for now, which I could recollect, I could share it, which can be helpful for others.
Yes, it is very helpful, Kavyaji, because two types of interventions you made. One is a change in policy, where you included this kind of inclusion in their system, and also you are practicing that at the ground level with your district administration and the municipal corporation, with creating this database system, and also including different type of disability people with the system, and creating system to accessible for them. This is very, very good, great work you are doing, and we would like to hear more from you. Definitely, we will, I mean, connect you offline, and
Sure,
sharing
sure.
your experience with the other colleagues. So it will be helpful for everyone, because you are working in Visakhapatnam, many other colleagues are working in different districts, and your learning will very well helpful for them to utilize in their area. So it will be like win-win for everyone. Thank you so much for doing great work, and thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you, Kavyaji. So now we
Thanks a lot.
have Srinivasaji from Chaitanya Jyoti Welfare Society, Nellore. Ji, sir.
Okay. Okay, madam. Thank you. Good evening. This is Srinivas Rao from Nellore, and also on behalf of our IAG, the AP chapter also, we would like to express our concern on the role of state government, the importance of particularly in the case of DDMS, and at district level, the disaster management authorities, they are in a position of spontaneity. Whenever it comes, it may be flood, it may be cyclone, it may be the heat wave. It is only confined to the mechanical function. But we would like to suggest some suggestions, like conduction of mock drills. It is the community based the mock drills in coordination with the aligned departments. The aligned departments, particularly revenue department, and also fire department, so that it is these are the based on the political will also. Why? Because we had to promote the one community based culture in the through conduction of the mock drills. We had to promote the early warning systems, and also search and evacuation, and also conduction of communities shelter management, and also the promotion of the community kitchens, all these things. So we have to promote. It is one type of the people's program. So we have to sensitize our governments and also our line departments locally. These are few suggestions of us. Thank you, Divaji.
Thank you so much, sir. It is very, very important. I mean, not including, actually, working closely with them. Because normally what is happening, they are definitely utilizing the preparedness part. They are definitely utilizing resources they are having for the emergency response. But this in majority of areas, we are missing those golden hours, which we are having between the early warning messages to the real time hazard is happening. So these golden hours, these golden days, definitely we can utilize while our system get strengthened in that way. They should not wait for emergency to get occurred, then only they will go for the response, but to utilize that time to shift community to the safer location and use the trained volunteers and active community members in the protecting the community, and also making the changes in the practices, like Dhruv was talking about. Just change the agriculture practices. Kavyaji was talking about just a change in their system, or making it more inclusive for the people living with the disability. So just small interventions, just small changes will definitely help all of us to protect community with the early warning system, with the anticipatory action. Thank you so much, sir, and very important aspect you shared, sir, because without government and if they will not activate during the anticipatory action, this entire effort cannot be made. And the real time case study was already shared by the ADRA colleague. So thank you so much.
Okay, madam.
So we are having, we already crossed the time. We can take at least 1 or 2 more minutes if any last one colleague would like to share anything. Though we crossed the time, but it's fine. If we can stay back for 1 or 2 more minutes.
Yes, ma'am, definitely.
If any other colleague, otherwise, yeah. Any one colleague. Yeah, I think, yeah, Nupur, we can go ahead with a vote of thanks. Yeah, Nupur.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for facilitating this discussion. And this was really an insightful and timely conversation. And on behalf of Spirit, I formally thank all of the speakers. We had Mr. Obi Shriji from IMD, we had Damien Rickett from FAO, and Anand from UNICEF, and Mr. Rupdas from ADRA. And a special thanks to you, ma'am, Mr. Gupta from SEEDS, for wonderfully facilitating this discussion. And I also thank all of the participants who joined us today. We'll make sure that the resources from today's webinar, especially the presentations, they'll be shared with all of the registered participants over email. And if you have any follow-up questions for any speaker, you can feel free to write to us, and we'll sure we facilitate that discussion with the concerned person. So now, as monsoon approaches, we hope today's discussions were helpful to you in some capacity or the other, and we look forward to continuing our work and collaborating together. Thank you so much, everyone. And with that, we'll formally close this session. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much of thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Very thank for organization. Nice school meeting. Thank you, ma'am.